Welcome everyone to week number 1 in Science 200. I hope that you're excited about taking this course. It's all about the natural sciences and specifically about how the scientific process works. You are going to work through a topic throughout this term, and by doing this, especially in a scientific way, you learn about the scientific process. So I welcome you to the course. My name is Dr. Janie Sigmon. Please go back and read my information in the instructor's announcement that I have already put into our course. And I am going to get us started with this week's work. All right, usually I won't have this much verbiage on a slide, but since this is the first week, I wanted to give you enough information. And of course, in a video, you can always stop it and take a look at what I've written here. So the first thing to do is get access to your web text in Sumo. Sumo is the brand, and you'll be using our textbook online. It's an online textbook, and there are 8 chapters that correspond to our 8 weeks in the term. This week you will be working your way through chapter 1. I have the sections there. Every week you work through whatever that chapter is. There are exercises, there are things for you to read, there are things for you to digest and make judgments about and show your understanding about. There will be questions in the chapter, and so you will answer those questions in the textbook, and most of those questions are automatically graded. So they're graded by the Sumo web text, and that means I don't grade them. They automatically show up for you and pretty automatically show up in Brightspace. So I don't do too much with those. I do give you a little feedback on those, but that's about it. If you have any trouble with any of them, if something is going wrong, please let me know. I can look and see what is going on. Also this week in chapter 1, you're going to learn all about the natural sciences. So biology, chemistry, geology, astronomy, environmental science. I don't know if I missed anything. Physics, that's the one I missed. Those are the natural sciences. I am a biologist, and specifically a microbiologist. So of course, biology is my thing. I love biology, but I love all the sciences. And in my public health days, I was considered an environmental scientist because of the work that I did with vector control in 2 different health departments and a mosquito control district down in Texas. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. You can go and read my bio in the instructor's announcement. So also this first week, you are going to go ahead and pick your topic. Now, there are several that are listed in the textbook. Genetically modified organisms. What are these? These are usually plants or animals that are used as food, usually, or they produce some product for us, like bacteria and producing human insulin. And these organisms have been genetically modified in some way to produce something that we want them to produce. It might be herbicide or Roundup resistance in crop plants so that farmers have an easier time growing the crops, or it might be adding a nutritional value like vitamin A to golden rice. It might be modifying bacteria in order to produce antibiotics that we want, or something in particular, some type of protein that we want them to produce, like human insulin. So those are genetically modified organisms. There's lots of controversies about them. Over in Europe, they're basically banned from being sold as food items, but not here. And really, the only time you see information about them on food labeling is when foods say that they are non-GMOs. You don't see that they are GMOs. So anyway, that's a very interesting topic, and people have lots of opinions about them. I will tell you that. When you start doing a search on the internet, you come up with some crazy websites on GMOs. Electric cars, they're all in the news. Everybody's getting one. So are there any controversies about electric cars? All of these are issues or topics that may have some problems with them. And that's why they're in the news. So electric cars are great. We have some issues with their batteries. So you can look that up if you're interested in electric cars. Maybe you're thinking about buying one. I was looking at a hybrid car that I was thinking about purchasing, and then I found out that in 3 to 5 years, you have to spend over $6,000 to get new batteries, and that sort of freaked me out. So anyway, I'm still investigating that. Commercial nuclear energy, well, why is that coming up again? Because we are moving away from using fossil fuels, because fossil fuels and the combustion of them is causing so much damage to the environment, including climate change. So we're examining nuclear energy once again. Genetic engineering, and this really means genetic engineering of human beings. So changing the genes in human beings. Well, why is that controversial? Because who decides which genes we're changing? Are we changing these in adults? Are we changing them in embryos? If you change them in embryos, then that is a change that follows that human being as they develop and live their lives. So who decides which genes are changed? So there's a lot of controversy about genetic engineering, and in fact, it is not done in the world, anywhere in the world. Well, there's an exception. Over in China, there was a scientist who did this to 2 embryos, and those embryos developed and were born, and they're 2 little girls, and they have a particular change in their genes that makes them resistant to HIV infections, which is all well and good, but when you change that particular protein in the human body, that also changes your immune system. So he did this without any kind of approval. And because of that, the Chinese government has taken away his medical license, and he has spent time in prison because of this research. So yeah, that's probably not going to happen again for a while in China. So genetic engineering is really not done anywhere in the world yet, but you should be learning about it because it will be done eventually. Ocean acidification. This is where the pH of the ocean water is decreasing because of excessive carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere, and that is diffusing into the ocean water and lowering the pH. And what are the effects of that? If you change the pH of the ocean water, what's going to happen with the marine life there? That's an issue. Biodiversity conservation. Well, why is it important for ecosystems to be biodiverse? Having lots of different species that are living there, because that increases the health of an ecosystem. You have to have lots of different species interacting with each other in order to have a healthy ecosystem. And we are destroying habitats left and right because of construction, because of slash and burning of rainforest, etc., across the globe. And so we are decreasing biodiversity at a rapid rate, and we need to figure out how to stop doing that because we are destroying ecosystems. So those are just some of the topics. If you want to do a different topic, you have to get the okay from me. You can't just decide on your own you want to do something. I've had several students in the past couple of terms want to do psychology project. Okay, psychology is not one of the natural sciences, and I will not let you do that. Now, if you figure out a way to tie psychology with biology or chemistry, fine, we can figure that out. But you have to get the okay from me. There are a couple of extra topics that I really am interested in. Microplastics in the environment. Plastics end up, especially in marine ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems, and those plastics break down into tiny, 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 tiny particles, And we are finding them in all kinds of organisms. So microplastics pollution is one for me, and also light pollution. If you have ever flown in a plane at nighttime, you know what light pollution is. There is so much light coming from parking lots and businesses. Of course, this is for security reasons, and I understand that, but a lot of that light should not be directed up into the air. It should be reflected down onto the ground if we have to have it at all. So light pollution is another one that I'm particularly interested in. So anyway, if you're interested in anything other than the topics that are on my list or in the list in your textbook, then please contact me and I'll give you that information in just a minute. Okay, your example in Chapter 1 of how the scientific process works is of a study. Actually, it was an accident. It was an accidental discovery by a microbiologist named Alexander Fleming, and I'm a microbiologist, so of course I love this example. Alexander Fleming was a microbiologist. He came back from vacation and he was cleaning out a bunch of petri dishes. Boy, have I done that enough in my lifetime. So anyway, he was looking at a petri dish, and his lab was growing Staphylococcus aureus, which causes staph infections, and you've heard of those before. So he was growing petri dishes with these bacteria on an agar, and when he opened this one plate, and here's a picture of that plate, he noticed that there was a mold growing on it, and he observed that there was this clear zone around the mold growth where the bacteria were not growing, and this is called a zone of inhibition. So he sees this and he goes, that is interesting. Whatever that mold is producing right there is inhibiting the growth of those bacteria. I would like to figure out what that is. So he realized that the mold was Penicillium notatum. He knew the species name of this particular mold. It's basically bread mold. And so he named this substance penicillin, which all of you have heard of. It is the first antibiotic, true antibiotic that was produced and used in human beings. So he called the chemical, before he even knew what it was, penicillin, named after that particular mold. He isolated, and sure enough, it did. That chemical that the mold had produced inhibited the growth of bacteria. Now, in your textbook, it tells you what happened after that, because Alexander Fleming was just a basic microbiologist in a tiny lab, and there was no way for him to grow this mold and produce tons of it and purify it. And so it was a whole huge process for other scientists, and then industries had to get involved before we could produce enough penicillin and do the testing of it too, in order to show that it could kill bacteria in human beings. It was particularly useful in World War II and prevented a tremendous amount of infections, and American soldiers who were wounded by shrapnel or who had surgery, their lives were saved because of penicillin. It was the first antibiotic that was truly used worldwide to treat bacterial infections. Now, of course, there's lots of resistance in bacteria to penicillin, so it is rarely used, especially with Staphylococcus aureus. In 95% of all Staphylococcus aureus isolates that we have tested in hospitals across the world, there is penicillin resistance. So it's not very effective against the staph bacteria anymore. So anyway, read about this story because it's very interesting, and it shows you how science works, and it shows you how the application of science works. After a discovery is made, how can we move this into the public? How can we move this into applications out there in the world? Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, but he did not carry it forward because he did not have the resources to do that. Okay, so work in your chapter 1, do all that work, read the example of Alexander Fleming. Then you've got some things that are due this week. The first thing that's due are the discussion board postings. Your initial post is due by Thursday night before midnight. Your initial post is where you're going to introduce yourself to us. So tell us what you like to be called. Tell us where you're from. Tell us anything that you want to about yourself. Tell us what your major is, because you'll find other people in the class who have that same major and maybe some of your same interests. I always like for you to tell us about your hobbies and things like that, or where you've traveled to, things, anything interesting. And tell us what you expect to learn from this course, a science course. If you're doing gaming, if you're majoring in gaming, what does science have to do with what you're going to do? If you're majoring in math, what does it have to do? If you psychology, you get it. Criminal justice, how does this apply to you? Answer these questions. What field of natural science are you most interested in, and why? Why are you interested in that? And does this relate to the topic that you have chosen? So that means that you should have already chosen your topic by Thursday night. Read through all of this in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 will help you with all of this. And then you're going to make 2 response posts to your classmates by Sunday evening. They have to be substantive. You can't just say, "Oh, you did a good job, Amelia." No. Include what you have in common and whether you agree or disagree with them. Do you like the same natural science that they do? Did you pick the same research project? Do you live in the same area of the country? There's lots of things that you can comment on. Hey, Puffin. I just saw this Puffin in May of this year. And he's so cute. Puffins are adorable. And then you have a research project. You starting a planning document. I forgot to write this on here. You have a planning document that is due at the end of this week, Sunday evening too. You need to remember 2 deadlines. Thursday night, if you have discussion board postings, we do not have that every week in this term, in this class. We have discussion board postings in week 1, 3, 6, and 8. The other weeks, you don't have discussion board postings. So remember that Thursday night, and then everything else is due by Sunday night before midnight. All right, I have some hints for you for taking this course. Watch my videos and the announcements every week, because I talk about the science. I talk about the assignments that you have. I talk about your deadlines. I give you hints, and I tell you how things should be done. So make sure you watch my videos and the announcements every week. I know it takes a little time to watch them, but still, I'm being helpful to you. Deadlines are important. I just mentioned this. Follow the guidelines and rubrics for each assignment. So what is that? Guidelines tell you how to do something. The rubric is telling you how it's going to be graded. Okay, and I use that rubric that you can see as my grading tool for every one of these assignments. Read the feedback that I give. That's important, especially when you're working on your term-long project, because the information from this project builds week after week after week. You do one section, you get feedback on it. The next week you include that section and add something to it. You see how it goes. So read the feedback, use my feedback to do revisions all along the way. Label everything, label your documents. Please label them in a way that you know what they are. Because, I get things submitted sometimes that aren't even for this course because you didn't label it very well. You didn't label the file where you knew which one was which. So label everything with your name, with the date, with the course, with my name, with the assignment. Okay? When in doubt, or if you have any trouble, if you're having issues with your work at home, you can't get everything turned in on time, please just let me know. If you have any questions, if you have no clue how to do an assignment, please ask me. I do this as a part-time job. I love teaching. I've loved teaching my whole life. And I am here to help you succeed. So all you need to do is ask me. There's my email address, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I will put it everywhere. So there is no excuse for emailing me. Plus, of course, it's in the course too. m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I am here for you. All you have to do is call on me and ask. All right. With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I'm looking forward to meeting you online, of course, and getting to know you.